It is March 1st of 2022, and this is episode 39 of What Is On My Desk. So welcome back, everybody, to another one of my What's on My Desk monthly video updates. Quite a bit of progress to show you guys. Luckily, I haven't had, as usual, not as much time as I would have liked at the bench. But the work I did do, it wasn't relatively difficult work, and I did manage to get quite a bit done on these kits. So hopefully you guys will be pretty surprised at the progress. And I do have, I guess, 3 new products that I picked up recently that I'd like to give you guys a look at. So before we get too far in this, and before I get swung over to the desk, as always, my name is Sean, and this is Sean's Aviation. So before we get into looking at the progress on the models, I'm going to show you the 3 new products that I talked about in the intro. Now it's effectively, I want to start off, I have 2 new books. They're kind of a series. They're written by a gentleman here in Ontario by the name of Tom Walsh, and these are his books, The American RCAF Warriors, Volume 1 and Volume 2. So both of these books are effectively about Americans who came up and joined the RCAF in World War II, early World War II, 39, 40, 41, before the U.S. entered World War II. A lot of American pilots, or American citizens in general, crossed into Canada and joined the military, whether it be the Canadian Navy, the Canadian Army, or the Air Force. They tended to gravitate towards the Air Force, and there were quite a number that ended up serving in the RAF, in the RCAF/RAF. A number of them actually fought in the Battle of Britain, and then once the U.S. entered World War II, many of these American pilots flying in the RAF or RCAF moved over to the American forces later in the war. So a lot of these pilots got experience long before the U.S. entered the war. These books chronicle the stories. Volume 1, I have a bookmark. I'm currently in the middle of reading this one. The table of contents talks about here's the list of the pilots. So what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 21 pilots in Volume 1. And Volume 2 has 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, 22, 24, 26, 28, 30-ish pilots covered in the Volume 2. He does plan to publish a number of other volumes as time goes on, chronicling these American pilots who served in the Canadian. And it's a very interesting subject to cover. You hear about them. You see pictures of them, you know that happened, but to actually hear the personal stories of where they grew up, how they joined the forces, what they did, what aircraft and what units they served in. It's a very interesting series. It'd be nice to continue adding on to this. It's a very interesting reference going forward as well. So both of these I picked up here at the Canada Aviation and Space Museum here in Ottawa. Took the kids out. Sorry about that interruption by said kids. I took the kids out to the Canada Aviation and Space Museum on Family Day. And while I was there, I hit the store. I saw these. They've been on my list to purchase online for a while now. I just hadn't got around to it. So when I saw them in person, it made sense to get them. Great addition to my collection, and look good on the shelf. That's that is that. Very, very happy with these purchases. The other one I purchased sort of ties in to my summer plans. This is a challenge coin, and it is specifically from the Canada Warplane Heritage Museum down in London, in Hamilton. And they are celebrating their 50th anniversary this year, and this is their 50th anniversary coin. So that is their logo in the middle with the firefly, and then they got the 50th anniversary around it. On the back side is 50 years with the iconic Lancaster, which they are world famous for having. It is the only privately owned airworthy Lancaster in the world. The only other one being the one in England, the Battle of Britain Memorial Flight, which is still technically owned by the RAF. So it's a very interesting that it's private. People can purchase rides on it. Very cool. I have no affiliation with Warplane Heritage other than just being a fan. One of these days I do plan on buying memberships with them just to keep them alive and supporting them. So one day maybe I'll do that, but It is quite a hike to get down to Hamilton, so I don't get a lot of chances to get down there. But either way, this is their 50th anniversary coin. They are, planning quite a number of events this year to celebrate the 50th, including an air show. So that'd be interesting to go to. I also purchased one of their t-shirts, which will be my air show shirt for this year. So that is it for the products, the 2 books, and this cool coin. So very happy to have that. Again, only limited numbers were made. It'd be a cool, memento going forward as the, in the future when we look back at 50 years. So that's that. And that's point. Let's get ready to go. I'll get everything set up, and we'll take a look at the progress on those models. So now it's time for everybody's favorite part of the video, and that's getting to look at the progress of my models. As I did mention earlier in the intro, I have managed to get quite a bit done on these kits. And as I said, luckily, it wasn't very difficult work to get to where I am now. Some were more involved than others, but as I said, you'll see it's relatively easy, to get to the point where I've gotten to already. So we'll start with the L29. If memory serves, the last video we had seen the beginnings of some of the cockpit painting on some of these kits. So now the L29 has, for the most part, well, the cockpit's more or less completed. The fuselage is glued together, and I've started to do some minor cleaning up of some of the seams. I got just a tiny bit of putty. There's a little bit of a gap across the spine here. I just couldn't get it to close up properly, so a little bit of putty there, and then some of this has been cleaned up. It just needs a little bit of some light sanding to clean up some of the scratch marks and clean it all up and whatnot, a tiny bit of rescribing. There is a little bit, I'll zoom in here just a hair so you guys can get a better look at it. There is a little bit here at the front, this sort of canopy bow. It just has to be squeezed together, but it's a pretty fragile part, and I don't want to do too much to it for fear of breaking it. Clamps would definitely just snap that, and to hold that with, there's a bit of outward tension, and to hold out my fingers long enough to get that to glue together, A, it's a little tiring on the fingers, and B, I don't think I would be able to give it enough pressure long enough to do that without just becoming completely bored. There is a window that goes into here, a clear piece of plastic. I think once I get that glued into place, then I can try to clamp it, and everything should hold itself together in a way that that works quite well. So we'll see what happens with that. But that right now is sort of the only outstanding issue. Otherwise, everything's together. The cockpit is in there, the decals are on, everything's been cleaned up, dry brushed, flat coated, all that nine yards to clean it up. Same with the nose area here, and then inside the nose wheel well. Again, you can kind of see where the those oxygen bottles are in there and all the detailing work. So it's coming along. It is going to be mounted to a base, so the insides of there I'm not terribly worried about, but the upper parts where everyone's going to see, so that's where I put in a lot of my effort. But it's going to be mounted on a base when I'm all done with it. So the gear, I'm going to clean up the gear, make it look nice, but it's not too important. The ejection seats also look really nice, a bit of weathering, and then the decals for the straps and everything. So once you get those mounted in their respective locations, again, they look quite nice, look the part, everything tucks in there quite nicely. So that'll be kind of nice. I do plan to have the cockpit open on this so people can look inside and see. So that's a good bit. And then the wing, I have one wing assembled. You can see the intake trough here kind of curls into this opening. So when you actually get the wings mounted in the proper spot, it takes a little bit of finesse to get them in. But when you look down the intake, it'll disappear into the fuselage the way it would on the real jet. So it's a neat little addition they've made. It also forms inside the wheel well. You'll be able to see the back end of the intake, and that's actually the physical part, again, that does that shape. So it's pretty neat the way they've done that. It's a neat bit of engineering, and you can see here there's a tiny bit of the wheel well on the inside. So again, it's just a neat little bit of engineering. I like it. It fits well. It fits, looks the part, and it's relatively simple to manufacture and put together. So I'm very impressed with that. But as I said, I only have the one wing done now. So the other one, that's my next step, is to get the other wing built, and then those get glued on relatively early in the process. And the seams, as I'm sure you just noticed when you can get it together. I'm always afraid of snapping something when I'm trying to get these in, but it takes, like I said, just a tiny bit. There we go. That seam just disappears, and I haven't even glued anything yet. That's just pressure fit. So I feel like, you know, with a bit of glue, that seam is going to disappear, and this might be my only real issue right here. The rest of it should go together quite nicely. Minimal sanding and puttying, and then not much longer and this will be ready for an exterior coat of paint. So like I said, it is coming along quite nicely. Very happy with how this is turning out. Decent little kit. Moving on to the Dauntless. Again, I have it more or less assembled. I'm still a couple of steps away. A lot of this inner wing structure here needed quite a bit of clamping to get everything together, so I had to kind of stage, clamp it bit by bit to make sure everything was straight. Nothing got warped. But the cockpit itself has a very nice interior, very well detailed. Again, cockpit's going to be open on this, so I'm very happy with how that looks. Custom mix as I usually do with the zinc chromate and a little bit of black. I did do some sanding around this piece here, so it's going to need to be touched up at some point, but I'm probably just going to do that by hand when I get close to it. Bottom of the wing's a different story. This was a very bad seam. There's a big step in here, and it's going to take a bit of sanding to clean all that up. But I wanted to get this cleaned up now before I get too much other stuff on that I can break off. So I'm going to get this all cleaned up as well as I can, and then start assembling everything else, just to make sure that I don't start breaking things and popping things. But anyways, it's coming right along. This, again, I'm going to have wheels down. I'm going to have the flaps deployed, cockpit open, everything else, make it look really cool. And it's going to be a late war tricolor scheme, I believe I'll do it up in. But that's going to be a nice looking plane when I'm all done, all said and done. Very excited to get these flaps. I like the look of the Dauntless with the blown open flaps and the red in the inside with the white bottom and the blue top. It's a really neat look, so I'm very excited to kind of get all that done. So it's coming along. But yeah, that is the status of the Dauntless. And then it's really weird. I'm only working on 3 kits. I normally do 4, but as I said, with that C119 I completed last time around, finished and sent off to my father. I'm only working on 3 kits. So final kit is the Tamiya Meteor F1. So again, it's looking really good. It's quite a ways farther ahead than the other kits, but also at this point I haven't begun to assemble the cockpit because all of that fits in later. As I showed you last time with the cockpit and all the engine bits and everything else in the plastic bag, it all still has to be assembled and put in. So this one has a lot of that work happening later. So for now, I've got the fuselage glued together. The lower wing is one piece. The upper wings are the 2 halves, and then I've also glued on the front of the jets, the intakes. There are some pretty nasty seams on this. I'm very surprised for a Tamiya kit how many seams there are that I have to clean up. This one through here is pretty bad. I'm hoping when I'm going to do the usual like tape to wingtip across the other wingtip, and that should give it just enough dehydral to hide that seam. So I'm going to use that trick to hide that upper wing seam. The seams around these intakes were pretty bad. Quite a bit of putty. There was huge steps across the bottom. So I'm hoping that I can blend all that in. Same back here where the wing meets the fuselage. Quite a bit of steps and gaps formed in here between, because there's a rear fuselage, a wing fillet, and the wing all meeting at the same place, and the fit just wasn't quite what I expected. So that's going to be cleaned up. And there was also this weird gap at the back where there was a bit of an offset in the wing, so I had to clean up the inside of these jet intakes to kind of make them round, true them out. There's still a step, if you look, the plastic thickness changes, but they're round at least. So once I get the jets in there and the exhaust stacks and everything, which all blend together. I do plan on putting the engines in. I'm going to use the clear openings, but I'm going to use a bit of the squadron, the sticky tack, poster sticky tack that I used to make the little worms for camouflage. I'm going to make just kind of a blob of it with an irregular shape over the top of both of these, and then paint the camo. And when I peel those off, you'll be able to look down through the clear bits into the engines and just see a hint of the engines on both sides. I think that'll be an interesting look. Not something I normally go for. I usually go for that kind of realism look. I don't tend to do cutaways or any type of clear bits, but I think on this one I will, just for interest's sake. The other thing I can do is close it up, and I'd like to put an engine on display, but I need the engine in place to fill the hole. Otherwise, you know, you don't have an exhaust stack or you don't have anything else. So I think the clear bit is a good way to show the engine, especially on both sides. I think it'd be an interesting look. I was thinking of making the clear ones and the solid ones replaceable. I think that's a little, I mean, I could technically still do that. Just stick the clear piece on. I'll see what I end up going with. I'm still not 100% sure on that. I'll have to see. I might, yeah, I don't know yet. But anyways, long story short. Putty it all up. I did a little bit of puttying here around where the fuselage meets the front of the wing and the back of the wing and around the nacelle. So it's time for a bit of sanding at this point. Clean everything up a little bit, get some of these seams cleaned up. And then once I'm happy with all of that, I'll move on to the next stop, which is assembling all of this, the cockpit, the nose section, get that all done up, and then it will also be ready for paint in just a couple of little steps. So it is moving along. It's going to look cool. Again, this will be up with the prototype green-brown on the top with the yellow on the bottom, and then I think that'll be an interesting look. Yeah, no, I don't know. I'm very happy with this. It's my first Meteor I've ever built, and I think it's looking good. Anyways, I'm kind of rambling here. So that is the status of the kits. Going forward, video-wise, I think, you know, not much is going to change with the current schedule. I'm still doing the history of the RCAF videos coming out on the 15th of each month. I believe I'm working on 407 right now. For March, so it's taken quite a while. I mean, it's one a month, so it's going to take like 3 years to get through all of them, you know, at that rate, but it does take time to make the videos and do the research, so we'll continue on that schedule. I do have quite a bit more of the time-lapse. I think I have 2 more time-lapse videos for the model builds to come out, a couple more reviews to come out. We're also getting into the summer, so we're going to get back into airshow season. I'm planning this year to do the Hamilton Air Show in June, the Michigan Air Show in July, the London Air Show in September, and then the local Gatineau show. So I'd like to have some video reviews of all of those shows, get in and around. Hopefully statics are back, so I'll be able to get in and around some of the aircraft and get you some close-up videos of everything. So yeah, I think it's gonna be an interesting summer when it comes to air shows and aircraft. I'm gonna hope to get out to the Aviation Museum this summer as well and get some of those videos done that I had planned years back. I've got scripts written for a few videos we filmed at the Aviation Museum, so I'm gonna get those done. So hopefully this summer we'll see a bit of content coming out. All of that is predicated on me having enough time to actually edit all of these videos. That's the big thing. Filming content is relatively easy. Finding the time to edit videos is where I run into issues, especially with a full-time job and family. But anyways, that's kind of where we're standing for the summer. Thank you all for watching, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you for watching, guys, and as always, if you are interested in any of the content you see, you can access my website at www.seans-aviation.com. You can see all the latest pictures of aircraft and museums and the build logs of all of my current models and past models on that site. And if you're interested in any of this content, please click the subscribe button here on YouTube to follow more. Thank you very much, and see you guys next time.